Welcome everybody to episode number 329 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens are still a thing. I'm Brian Goulet here at the Goulet HQ, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about what is a starter vanishing point, who invented the first fountain pen. Spoiler alert, it's complicated. If we will carry Goulet two-tone nibs again, swapping grips on LAMY pens, especially trying to get that smoky all-star grip onto other pens. And I'm going to be showing you my personal Pilot Custom Urushi, what nib size I have and compare it to some others, because I got a question about that. So, should be a pretty fun day today. Might be a little bit shorter than usual. But, I'll pack as much in as I can. All right, let's start it off with some feedback. First off, we have one from Praz Green Studios. Says, is the feedback section name an intentional fountain pen joke, as in feedback while writing, or is it a coincidence? It is not a coincidence. I did that on purpose. I got a little bit of inspiration from a woodworking podcast that I've listened to for quite some time. It's called The Wood Whisperer, and they've been podcasting since 2007. Mad respect. That's a very long time. But they have a section that they call kickback, which is a woodworking term for when like wood binds up on a saw blade and then it kicks the wood back or kicks the tool back. So I kind of liked that idea and thought, well, feedback is literally what it is, and it's a fountain pen thing. So, why not? So yeah, that is where it comes from. So yeah. Okay, this next bit of feedback. We got several different people that commented. Gretchen, E.K. Engel, Lizstone Wolf, Terry M, and then specifically this comment from Gene Curl, but Gene Curl kind of sums up what everybody was saying. So this is from last week. I always love your videos, but I have to correct you a little on your geography. This is an actually kind of comment. As someone who lived out west for a large part of my life, I can tell you that you are a little bit off in your Yellowstone geography. The majority of the park is in Wyoming, but a small portion of the park is in Idaho and Montana. Utah is quite some distance south of Yellowstone. Anything west of North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas is considered west. Thank you for the clarification. I never mind being corrected when I'm just straight up wrong, because that's how you learn. And then other people are not getting wrong information. So yeah, I apologize about that. I was looking at like the Yellowstone map. When I was in Yellowstone, I was not necessarily paying attention to which states that I was in. And I misspoke. It's not part of Utah at all. I was thinking Wyoming. So yeah, most of the time I was in Wyoming when I was in Yellowstone. Anyway, thank you for correcting me. But yes, geography's never been my gift. Okay. Next one we have is from Mick Amrin. Says, lest we forget, Pilot varsity pens can be refilled. Just another great fact about the world's best cheap fountain pen, in my honest opinion. Brian's video on the subject makes it pretty easy. Now my 5-year-old varsity is full of Iroshizuku Takesume. Not really a disposable pen. Well, they market it as a disposable pen because it is a bit of a hack to refill it, but it can be done. I've got a video on that. You should check that out. So yeah, that can be like one of the greatest. And it's a good writing pen too for being disposable. So I'm glad you enjoy it. This next comment, this is from Toots4. This is a funny name. Toots4956. Hi Brian, thank you for this fun video and the family update. You make us feel like family. Have a great 2 weeks. So this was before I went out. You're very welcome. It's always a fine line how much you share personally on the internet, because, these days they are being what they are. So I try to share selectively, but, I've also been doing this for 16 years. So you watch enough videos and you're going to know plenty about me, but maybe more than you want to know. So I'll keep trying to share like what's relevant. But honestly, sometimes I'm just like straight up in that just like middle-aged dad mode. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just like doing yard work and cleaning the house and getting groceries and driving my kids places. It's not always that exciting, but I try to share what's relevant. And then last comment I have is from Andreas Blahaus. says, Brian, that was the best breakdown of a traveler's pen that I've ever seen. This was from 2 weeks ago. I love how brave you are to just rip it to pieces. It was interesting to see the feed look so fragile. That pen is a beast. Mine has lived in my gym bag every day for the last 3 years. It's been thrown around, kicked from place to place, and even sat on, and it still writes perfectly. First time, every time. It was hard to believe that that tiny piece of plastic can withstand that kind of abuse. I think it's a great everyday carry pen, possibly a contender for a GOAT EDC pen. It'd be great if you could put that question out as a YouTube short for future reference. Well, this is a YouTube long, but y'all can also leave comments. Maybe I'll put it as a short as well. What is the greatest of all time everyday carry fountain pen? I would argue the Traveler's pen should be up there if it's not the GOAT. I mean, it's the one that I'm carrying around, so I guess it's my GOAT. Yeah, I have it on me right now, literally. Almost put it through the wash this morning, but, you know, I didn't, so it's all good. I have washed it before. All right, that's it for feedback. Let's talk about some new stuff. All right, we got a couple of bottles of ink. This is from Jacques Herbin, some new 1670 and 1798 ink. So the difference between those, they're both the fancy inks with the wax seal and all that on it. The 1798 ink all has silver shimmer, and the 1670 ink all has gold shimmer. If you didn't know that, that's the big reveal, big surprise. It's not really a surprise. It's just, it helps, I guess, if you're looking at it. Okay, so anyway, we got two of those. The first one is the 1798 with the silver shimmer. This is Diamant Blue, so it's a deep blue with some silver shimmer. It's got that fancy looking bottle, and it's their 2025 anniversary ink. So it's their, well, actually, I guess they did 2 anniversary inks. So they did a 1798 and a 1670. So this is like their big anniversary inks for the year. And then we have the Jacques Herbin 1670 Opale Nocturne, which is a green blue. It's definitely more on the blue side than the green side, with gold glitter in it. So both of these are available now, and they're going to be $35 or $34.65 to be exact. They present really well. I love how these look, and way back in the day they used to have really skinny necks, kind of like the Ferris wheel press, but now they're nice and big and you can dip into them nice and easy. So yeah, some of the fancier, more presentable ink bottles, along with like Pelikan Edelstein and Pilot Urushi. I like all those bottles. All right, a couple new pens from Platinum, the Platinum Biso fountain pens. So these are new models of pens. They're kind of similar in style to the old PTL 5000A, if you're familiar with that at all, or like a modern Mach-E. It's like that. It's a relatively simple design, but these are, they're going to have regular ones, but we're going to get those at some point, like a blue and a red. But these ones are basically like limited edition colors. They're pretty sparkly, and they look pretty neat. So they are only going to be 1,500 of these made worldwide. Mystic Purple and Sparkle Mint Green. And they are named for the Japanese words beauty and harmony. So that's kind of cool. But they are available in fine and medium nib. They're steel nibs, and they're very feedbacky. Not scratchy, but like they're ground to be very toothy. So if you like that, if you like to have like firm feeling on the paper, some people like that. Some people like really smooth nibs and just want to be like gliding all over the place. Other people feel like they're gonna just slip off their desk and fall on the floor if they have such a slippery nib. So some people like it to be a little more firmly planted. This is in the firmly planted camp. So these pens are going to be $160. Unfortunately, they don't come with an ink converter though, so you got to add that on. It's kind of weird. Normally pens in this price range, you get a converter. This one doesn't have it though. So I don't know why they're doing it that way, but that's how they're doing it. So you can go check those out. We'll have them while we have them. And then we got a new pen set from Benu. This is the Benu Pixie Magenta Madness, set. These pens are not available separately, only as the set, at least as of right now. I don't know if they'll change that in the future. $186, but you get 3 pens. So this is their Pixie. This is their small little pocket pen, which you can eyedropper fill. You can use cartridges, standard international cartridges. No converter though. It's just too small. Even the little foldable converter is not the most well, I haven't tried the foldable converter line actually, but either way, just eyedropper convert it. It's got a Schmidt number 5 nib on it, extra fine, fine, and medium. And yeah, let's see here. Oh yeah, mini standard. Okay, the Quake foldable does fit. Okay, it's in my notes. And then, yeah, it's 3 shades of magenta. Deep post, nice little pocket pen. If you like magenta colors, you're gonna like these pens. And maybe some inks to match, because I do have a ink showdown for magenta coming out before too long. I've shot it, but it's waiting to publish it. So, little teaser. So that'll be coming. Yeah, and then, or maybe I did. Maybe we'll swap it around. See, it's Monday right now. Haven't decided if I'm going to do that one or the other one that I have planned. I've got a Fountain Pen Hall of Fame that's going to be coming out soon. So this week, you'll either have seen me publish a Fountain Pen Hall of Fame or the Magenta Ink Showdown. It just depends on how well the Fountain Pen Hall of Fame video comes together. Those are a little more complicated to shoot. Anyway, moving on. Another new thing that we have is the Colorverse 2025 Color Vent Calendar. So, you know, you might be familiar with Diamine Ink Vent. They've been coming out with that for 6 years now. But Colorverse started their own last year. So this is 24 inks in 1 box set. Very cool, very nice theming. And these are going to be the 15 mil little space slug bottles. So you get plenty of ink, 24 bottles of 15 mil ink. And it's meant to be, you know, starting off opening on the first day of December, gets you through right up until Christmas Eve. So yes, nice fun little thing. Lots of cool inks. They're new inks. I don't know what they are because I'm going to experience it new, just like with you all, but we do have them in, so you can go check those out now. It's like, what, beginning of October, but you know, whatever. I went to Home Depot the other day and they already have, I mean, literally as soon as October rolled around, it was like Christmas stuff up. They still have Halloween stuff up on one side and then Christmas stuff over there. And I'm like, this is weird. This is weird. 2 almost competing holidays there. Anyway, and then what else we have? We have from Monteverde, we have the new MP1 Mermaid Tails. This is a limited edition that they're doing. I don't think it's a numbered limited edition. It's just a limited, whatever, production, whatever you want to call it. $60 for this pen, so very on the affordable side. It's got a Yovo Made number 6 nib, extra fine through stub plus OmniFlex. It's a piston filling pen. You know, holds 2 mils of ink, which is plenty. And it's got a locking piston too, so it's not going to go spilling on you. And it's a limited edition color. It's really cool. It's a green, sort of like a teal green to purple ombre. And it's got a purple finial. So it's really cool. It's got like 3 mermaid stickers along with a story card. And it's anodized aluminum, but I don't see a lot of anodized aluminum that has an ombre effect like this. So that's really pretty cool. And then it's got Monteverde's plasma treated feed as well, which ever since they started doing the plasma treating on the feeds, they've been writing them really well. Good flow on those. So you can go check that one out. And then the last one I have is very much, very, very limited. The Sailor 1911 King of Pens King Eagle nib. If we still have it by the time. We just launched it a couple days ago as I'm recording this. By the time this video publishes, I don't know if we'll have it because we only have one. But anyway, this is a very, very special pen. The pen itself is, you know, it's a fancier version of a 1911. It's got a cool center band and everything, but the main thing is the nib. So this is the King Eagle nib. It's special to Sailor. It is a triple stacked nib. It looks cool. It looks so crazy. I haven't pulled it out and played with it myself because it's all like sealed up and stuff like that. I didn't want to go cutting the plastic and, you know, getting all into it, you know, because this is going to be kind of more of a collector piece, I guess, though it is definitely meant to be written with. So I don't know. We'll see. I didn't want to do it with the first one, so we'll see if I can get more and play with it in the future. You know, it was very tempting for me to just take this one and say, oh, sorry, we don't have any, but no. Anyway, so very cool. So it's going to have a similar effect in the way that it writes to the Naginata Togi. So that means that if you have it, you know, very high angle, it's going to write really thin. The lower you drop your pen, the broader the stroke it's going to get. And of course, this is 3 stacked nibs, so it's going to be 3 times more dramatic than your Naginata Togi. So very cool. They have not made the specific nib in, I think, like a decade or so. Definitely not since we've carried Sailor. But yeah, I can't even remember them being available they might have been like available to one shop or something years ago, but I don't know. It's never been widely available. So this is the first time really that you've been able to get your hands on one, other than like picking up a used pen at a pen show or something like that, which would probably be pretty expensive anyway. But anyway, so this pen is just under $2,000, so it is not cheap, but to do this kind of welding and grinding and stuff is very labor intensive, and really there's not many people in the world that can do it. So yeah, you can go check that one out. And that's all I got for new stuff, but there's going to be plenty of new stuff coming out, so stay tuned for future weeks because I'm going to have a lot to talk about. All right, do a quick company update, and then we'll get into the questions. Okay, company update. I kind of already said this, I guess, but I have some video that's already launched this week. I don't know whether it's going to be an Ink Showdown, Magenta Ink Showdown, or the Hall of Fame video, but either way, that's what's going to be happening in the next 2 weeks, is those 2 videos. In which order, I'm not 100% sure as of this recording, but be on the lookout for that. Other than that, it's pretty much just us doing our thing here. We've had, we're getting ready for the holidays, so we're like ordering up our inventory, so we've been very busy receiving all that in, making sure we're well stocked so that you all can get the stuff that you want as we get into the holiday season. It's crazy that we're already planning that. I mean, we already started planning for holiday season, like in the beginning of summer, so there's lots of sales forecasting and lots of, deciding what to stock up on and these types of things, release dates for various things. So yeah, we feel like we're in the holidays all the time. By the time it actually arrives, we're like, okay, I'm so done with this. But then we like do the thing with our families and all that, but like from the business standpoint, we're thinking about the holidays a lot, as most retail businesses do. But anyway, so yeah, we've been stocking up on that. So everybody's been staying pretty busy. But other than that, yeah, we're just kind of doing our thing. So that's all I got for you this week. Let's get into the questions. All right, first question. This is from Jaziwardas. If I said that right, I don't know. From episode 327, so this is where I was showing the Link Midnight Pilot Vanishing Point limited edition. It's their annual pen for this year. When I was showing the instructions that came with the pen as I was unboxing it, I made a comment that said, I can't imagine that this will be most people's starter Vanishing Point. Meaning that if you're probably not getting this pen not knowing what it is and needing to use the instructions. It was just a throwaway comment I had. But Jazzawardis said, made a comment and said, what is a good starter Vanishing Point pen? Thinking face emoji. So I couldn't tell if that was like sarcastic or if you're asking genuinely. Either way, I thought it would be good to talk about, because if you're not that familiar with the Vanishing Point, it might be good to explain it a little bit. So the guts and the function of a Vanishing Point is going to be pretty similar across all pens. I have some here that I want to show you. So I have my Link Vanishing Point, which is a limited edition, which basically it's a numbered thing. It comes in some special packaging, and it's something fancier, whether it's coloration or engraving on the body, something like that. So the Link Midnight, you get the guilloche plus the blue color. So that is what's cool about it. And it's got the number as well. But it's $580. So that's part of my comment, was that, just given the higher price, it's probably not this first Vanishing Point that someone would get in their collection. But also it's a limited edition, and they're not around for, nearly as regularly as all the other Vanishing Points. So that's also why, limited edition pens don't necessarily tend to be most people's starter pen of a given model. Not just the Vanishing Points, but really with all pens. And, but there are some that do, though, because I know I've definitely had some pens before where I don't necessarily have that particular model, but there's a color that comes out or a theme that comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. All right, I guess I'll get that one. Not that I'm necessarily like collecting a certain model, but the theming or the limited nature of it entices me to actually get into it. So, but I don't think that's most people. Most people getting, a pen like this that's available in a ton of different colors and options, it's just the annual limited edition thing. I think that's pretty much going to be your diehard VP Pilot fans that are going to get it. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about some of the other Vanishing Points, because there are many of them at different price points. And I wanted to talk about those a little bit. So the ones that tend to be the most of the starter Vanishing Points are, I have my black matte one here because I think this is the most popular Vanishing Point. And that's pretty much that way year after year. This is a standard one. These are available for $176 as of this recording. That can always change because we are living in interesting times right now. Pilot's been consistent though. They haven't raised their prices since the tariff stuff. But who knows? That could always change because it's 2025. So yeah, but there's a bunch of different colors. Usually you're getting like a standard, kind of color body with chrome trim. Maybe there's some matte black trim on some of these, but there's a bunch of standard, regularly available colors that come on the Vanishing Point. So you're still getting the same 18 karat nib. You're still getting, the click mechanism and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's that one. So that I think would be most people's starter. Vanishing Point would be a regular edition line. To go a little step up from that, you have the Birchwoods or the Stripes. The Stripes is a like a fluted silver one, which looks really cool, but I don't actually have one of those. Can I justify adding one of those? See, I could have used it in today's video if I had one. I'll have to talk to Rachel, my boss. She's going to be like, you have so many pens. Just stop it. Just stop it with that. Anyway, this is the Birchwood. So there's a Birchwood red and a black. These are wood. They're made of wood, real wood. So that's, a little harder to do than just plain metal. So these are a little more expensive. You're in like the 330 range, 336, I think they are. Same pen, basically, but different material. So that's kind of cool. But, it's like twice the price. The Vanishing Point LS, it's just a fancier version of the Vanishing Point. It's really about the mechanism on this one. So it's got like a twist mechanism on the back. You can also click it, but then it's like a soft. So yeah, you can click it like that too, but then it's kind of like a soft release, which is pretty neat. Is that worth the premium that it is? Because I think you're into like the pushing $500 for this one. Probably not for most people. These are not the hottest sellers, but it is a really cool soft mechanism. And if you're in an environment where you don't want to hear that clicking noise, this would be a good one. And then we've got the Rodins, which these are Urushi lacquer with abalone shell. There's a few different ones. This is the water stripe. There's the Galaxy, and then the other one that I'm failing to recall from memory what it is. But it's more organized like the water stripe one. Anyway, these are going to be a lot more. They're going to be like the $800-900 range because it's a lot more handwork involved, and Urushi lacquer is complicated and difficult to do. So there's your range. So anywhere from $176 to like pushing $900 for your Vanishing Point. So it can range quite a bit. And then the Link Midnight is going to be falling more into that kind of premium, like middle to premium range. So yeah, there you go. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover. So I appreciate the question. Whether it was sarcastic or not, I don't know. But you got an answer anyway. So there you go. All right, question 2. This is from Sandy Banks. It says, what about doing a history of the fountain pen overall? Who made the first one? Well, how long do you want to be here? Because fountain pens have been around for a while. It's not like they were invented a couple of years ago. You're talking a couple of centuries almost. Maybe longer, depending on what you consider a fountain pen. So it is a bit complicated. The creation of the fountain pen was a bit more of an evolution than it was a revolution. Though there were some key points where certain aspects of the pen, there were like some breakthroughs that happened. So I wouldn't say I have a deep dive. I've got a, wading in the ocean up to your waist, maybe, kind of dive. So we'll see. Now, I will say there's a couple of good resources if you want to learn more about this. Wikipedia's got a decent page. Doesn't go into full in depth, but it's got some decent stuff about the history, like the origin of the fountain pen. But the best page that I found was Richard Binder, known Nibmeister, has been doing this for decades and decades and decades. He's mostly retired at this point, but he's still got his website is still a huge resource, especially if you're into like vintage stuff, pen repair, all that type of stuff. He's got so much stuff on there. So I still use this site as a resource regularly for this type of stuff. But yeah, so he's got a good source on there, and I will link to that in the video description. So yeah, I am referencing some of his stuff, some of Wikipedia's, and then just, I'm going to provide my own commentary, I guess. So the oldest account of a pen with a reservoir, which is kind of what makes a fountain pen. So the oldest, historical account goes back to 953 AD in Cairo, Egypt, for the ruler going to try to say this name, but it is long. Abu Tamim Ma'ad al-Mu'iz Li Din Allah. I don't know if I said that right, but very long name. Anyway, so there is no physical evidence of this pen existing or a detailed description of its design, unfortunately. But there's some historical account saying that this ruler wanted it to happen. There are a few designs, iterations of the pen that apparently happened, and then he was happy with the result. But we don't have hard evidence, just a historical kind of like anecdotal comment. So that could be argued to be, the first iteration of it. There's been many other versions of various pens, mostly like quills with some kind of makeshift reservoirs attached to them, somehow made into them. Everything made from, reeds to glass tubes, metal tubes, rubber sacks, made from like goose intestines and stuff like that. I mean, what do you work with when you don't have modern science, right? So there's a bunch of stuff that was kind of being tried out from like the 1600s onward. In fact, I believe that Leonardo da Vinci even had some like detailed drawings of what you could argue is a fountain pen, a pen that holds, ink to it. But there's no evidence that he ever actually made it. He did a bunch of stuff like that. He also did like a, helicopter and stuff like that, and a bunch of war machines that were never built. But there are people that like go back to his detailed drawings and try to build those things. I didn't take my notes on this part, but I remember reading about it. There was an artist who in 2011 or 2021, I can't remember, relatively recently, who actually did make the pen that Leonardo da Vinci had. So that's a bit of a side quest in our deep dive. But you could argue that might have been first one. But then throughout the like 1600s and the 17, but really in the 1800s is when we start to get into like, these are when fountain pens were really kind of coming into their own. So it will get cited that there's debate about this. Richard pointed to the debate in his own article, but Wikipedia will say that Petraș Punaru, who's a Romanian inventor and did a bunch of other stuff too, is generally credited with having the first patented design back in 1827. It wasn't like totally out of the blue. There was a bunch of pens that were kind of similar. It was a novel design, and it was kind of a leap in that way in terms of the reservoir, the filling. But that could be argued to be kind of the first. But there was not the same modern materials that we have. It really wasn't until the Industrial Revolution where you started to actually have like economically viable fountain pens. And I really consider that to be, okay, there may have been someone that sort of prototyped it or maybe patented it, but if it wasn't really being made, there's not really physical examples of this, and it wasn't like being sold basically as a pen, then it's like, I could argue that like, I guess it's a different classification of first pen that you would do. So that's when we get into what is considered to be the first commercially viable fountain pen. So that would be thanks to Louis Edson Waterman. So you've probably heard of the brand Waterman. So this was back in 1884. There was a patent for the 3-fissure feed. So it was really the design of the feed and having a reliable feed that would be able to control the ink flow that made fountain pens really kind of take off. So it's the reservoir that sort of made it be a fountain, but it was kind of a inconsistent, burpy, gushy fountain until the feed was properly designed, and that really changed the game. So, it's like most scientific breakthroughs, if you call this that. it's going to be a bunch of different people that contributed to it. And, you know, it's no one person that should get credit for all of it. But generally speaking, that feed patent in 1884 was really kind of the kickoff for the modern fountain pen that became commercially sold, commercially available. And, you know, the fountain pen was like, it was like the iPhone of its day. It was like pretty revolutionary. Before that, everybody was carrying around, you know, iron gall ink or whatever kind of, you know, handmade ink basically. And then, you know, you were having to carry around either a quill or maybe a metal nib or something like that, and having to, you know, carry around all these parts and pieces, and you had to keep it with you all the time and constantly be dipping and all that kind of stuff. It really was a fountain pen. They called it a fountain pen because the reservoir that was inside the pen made it seem like ink could just flow out like a fountain. So not having to dip it every couple of lines was kind of a game changer. So that's really what, I mean, that was the communication tool of the day. I mean, I guess you had things like telegrams and stuff like that, but they were not easily accessible to everyone, and they weren't the cheapest thing. So it's really the fountain pen that made it, you know, in your everyday life that you could just communicate with. That was it. That's what people had. I guess, and you had typewriters and stuff, but they were pretty expensive as well. So as far as what you could carry around every day, fountain pen was it. So yeah, that's kind of what gets us up to speed. There's so much more. And again, I'm not like a fountain pen history expert. I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to recognize, you know, the history when I see it in articles that other people have written who know more than me. But yeah, so Binder's a good one. And there's probably other like vintage pen people and historical people that know more about this than I do, but that at least gives you sort of the rundown. So yeah, we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. Okay, this is from Aurora 3957. I am eyeing a new fountain pen and want an extra Goulet dual tone or two-tone nib, but I notice you don't have them on your website anymore. Will they be returning? So it's a two-parter. That's the first part of your question. I'll answer that first. So not that I know of. It's possible it could return, but we do not do the two-toning because we're not a manufacturer, and it's kind of involved to do that, believe it or not. So we were getting them from Yovo already in two-tone, you know, and then, you know, so that it was just an option for us to get it as opposed to straight up silver or all gold. We liked the two-tone look, we really did. But what happened was when COVID hit and it became more difficult, there was some environmental regulation stuff that made, you know, the plating process a little more difficult and more expensive. And then labor, because from what I understand, or kind of what maybe was told through the grapevine, it basically has to be like masked off. You take a regular nib and you have to like mask off the part, and then you know, plate the gold part with gold, and you have to hand mask that off. So it was actually pretty laborious to be able to do that, and so they had a difficult time keeping that up after COVID. So Yovo actually made the switch. So if you notice, especially any of the, you know, I'm sure if you're buying them in enough quantity, you might be able to get it done, but for the smaller, you know, and as big as you may think we are, we're small, you know, in terms of like buying nibs, right? But, you know, if you notice like Edison, Franklin Christoph, other people that use Yovo nibs, like where we get ours from, they don't have the two-tone nibs anymore. If they do, they're on the way out. I think we still have some Edison number 6 two-tone nibs, which, you know, are going to write very similar to ours, but they've got the whole housing and everything. So that would be an option, just get an Edison nib. But yeah, we don't have any our Yovo two-tones with the Goulet logo on them. Unfortunately, I really liked that design. It was sad when that had to go away. So it's possible it could be done again if Yovo offers it, but I don't know if they'll go back. Anything's possible. But the alternative would be for us to plate it ourselves, which could be done, but I don't know any platers. I'd have to go searching for that. And then I don't know if they would do the masking off and all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty specialized thing. So I don't know. It just there hasn't been enough demand for it for us to justify going out and sourcing out somebody. And then there would be obviously extra cost and extra hassle. So would you want to pay extra? You know, it might increase the price by like 25, 50%, maybe more. depending on, I don't know, I haven't priced it out. But it's going to be considerable work to get that done. So it just hasn't been worth it for us to go pursue that on our own. Yeah, so that's pretty much gets you up to speed on that. Now, the second part of Aurora's question here is, can LAMY make the All-Star feeding body tips sold as parts? So I think you mean like the grip section. I would love to purchase All-Star translucent feed tip section of the pen and change it in my LAMYs. I find the translucent feed part fascinating, and it makes it easier to see when cleaning. So I have some LAMYs here because I thought it'd be good to show. So when you have your LAMY All-Stars or your LAMY LX, Lux, they have a smoky translucent grip on them, as opposed to the Safari, which is a solid grip. So I imagine that's the Safari that you're talking about. Just for fun, for those who aren't as familiar with LAMY, there's a bunch of LAMY pens, and they all use the same interchangeable nibs, but they do not all use the same grip section. So one thing you may not know about this, and maybe you didn't care, maybe you never thought about it, or maybe you already know, and I'm just repeating something you already know. But the snap cap pens, which actually all of LAMY's pens are snap caps. Isn't all the Emporium maybe is not a snap? Is it a snap cap? I don't think the Emporium is a snap cap. Is that the only screw cap they have? Maybe it is. They do a lot of snap caps. Anyway, but it's actually the grip section that is kind of crucial to the snap cap working. So like on the Studio, it's got this tiny little lip here on the end, right near the nib. That is what clicks into the cap mechanism up there. So if you notice, you can put it most of the way on and then it snaps into place. That's what is doing the snapping, is that little bit right there. So even if you were to try to modify some other grip to be able to work in here, the pen wouldn't cap. But even still, this is a totally different grip. You can't swap it with anything. It's kind of the same thing with the Scala. It's got its own thing. It's got that little lip as well. So any other grip you could try to do wouldn't work. And then, the Ion, same deal, lip. So the ones that you're probably asking about, you didn't ask specifically, but I'm assuming, inferring, is you've got your All-Star and your Safari. You've also got the Lux, which is basically a fancy All-Star. You got the Vista, which is just a clear Safari. And then you got the Joy in here too, which is just a Safari with a long tail. So can you swap the grip sections on any of these pens? It's complicated. I would say no, because it's kind of a Frankenstein to do it, okay? So let me get the pens out of the way that don't belong here at all, just so I don't confuse you. Okay. So what do I want to work with here? I'll leave these up here, and I'll stick to just the straight up All-Star and Safari. So I got my Ocean Blue All-Star, and then this is my Safari. Oh my gosh, I always mess up the name. Steel Black. Steel Black? It's Steel Black, not Steel Blue. I always want to say Blue Steel because of Zoolander. I think it's Steel Black. You'd think I would know by this point, but anyway, whatever it is, that's what it is. It's the new one that just came out last year. Okay, so it looks very similar grips, right? Like it really does. Here's the weird thing though. They're slightly different. Namely, the most different thing is that when you unscrew the body of an All-Star, the black trim ring stays on the body. Whereas when you unscrew it on the Safari, look at that. Your black trim ring stays on the grip, not on there. So if I was to try to take a Safari grip and put it onto an All-Star, it sort of goes, but then you end up with sort of two trim rings, and then I guess it can cap. So yeah, you can sort of do it, but then the pen doesn't line up right. It's sort of in this weird spot. I actually don't know. I mean, I guess the grip still holds. I don't know. Does that work for you? Maybe. Actually, I realized I didn't actually answer the first part of your question, which is, can you get spare parts? And the answer is no. I guess I should have said that right at the beginning, because then you're like, why are you taking all these pens apart? I'm taking them apart because you can't just get a spare. You can't just get a spare part. That's not something that LAMY makes available. It's not something I foresee them making available anytime soon, unfortunately. The best I know is like if you needed a replacement because you like broke it or something like that, you might be able to reach out to LAMY like repair, but it's not something that they're just like selling feeds all day long, or selling grip sections or whatever all day long. But I don't know, you could always inquire with them, but it's not something they make available to retailers. And if they did, they'd probably make it so expensive it wouldn't be worth it. Okay, so you can sort of hack your way onto it and have, you know, a grip from a Safari on your All-Star if you wanted, I guess. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize they actually could swap like that, so that's kind of why we're doing this. I did test out the the All-Star one on the Safari, because that's what you were actually asking about. So it can, but you don't have that trim ring on there. So there you go. So I've got it lined up. So, okay, I've got a smoky translucent grip on my Safari. It doesn't have the black ring. It's a little weird, but the cap snaps on. So, and I guess you're not really like touching it there. So, I don't know, if you find two pens like this that you want, and you want to have the grip on the Safari instead of the All-Star, you could do it. What I am curious about that I haven't tried, because you have those LAMY, the multi-ring ones. I'm curious if I can pop this ring off. I don't think I've ever tried. Ooh, look at that. You can pop the ring off. Can I fit it on the All-Star? I would think that I could. Let me see. Hey! I've never tried this before, actually. I think we're all learning something today. Well, that's pretty fun. Never mind. Okay, so you can apparently pop that ring off, and then you can have your translucent grip on here. That's pretty snazzy. I can't believe I've never tried that before. How about that? I never wanted to like try to pop that ring off because I thought I would break it. But when the multi-ring came out and I realized like that's what you're supposed to do with that set, I literally just had never, I mean, I've been doing this 16 years now and I never thought to try just popping that ring off. Shame on me. I normally try to break pens all the time. So yeah, okay, apparently you can do that. I guess you could do that, you know, with any of these too. Let me see if I can, why don't we just try frankenpenning some things here. Let me put a red trim ring from my Joy onto my All-Star grip section and then put it on my Safari. Look at that. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but how about that? I guess for that matter, if you had the Safari multi-ring set, you could take some of the extra rings and swap it out on other Safaris. Never thought to do that before. Huh, how about that? Probably should have pointed that out when I showed you the multi-ring set, what, 5 Q&As ago or whatever? Well, that's pretty fun. They're probably not wanting to advertise that much just in case you know, break something or lose the ring or something like that. I mean, the pen will still function without that ring there. It just doesn't look as sharp. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could take that ring, you can swap it on the All-Star. I mean, the Joy is going to be the same as the Safari. It's just got a longer body. So you can swap that around. So yeah, you know, if you're so inclined, you can swap your parts around and do that. But unfortunately, the main part of your question was like, can you get spare parts to be able to swap that out if you want? And unfortunately, no, you can only get spare parts from other pens. So, I mean, I guess you could like try to find damaged pens on eBay or something like that. You know, somebody's got a pen that like the cap, they lost the cap or they, you know, whatever. I don't know. Somebody might want to be selling kind of parts of a pen. And if all you need is a grip section, you might be able to get a grip section for probably as little as you would for a replacement from like the repair place or whatever. And then I don't even know what they charge, to be honest with you, if they even make those available. The Luxe, I think, is identical to the All-Star. Let's try that out. Let's see. I mean, the nib is going to be different, but the grip section, I think, is exactly the same on these two. Yeah, it seems that way. Just to be sure, let me throw the all-star grip on the Luxe body. Yeah, that's the same. Seems like the Luxe is, I don't know if my eye's playing tricks on me. Does this seem a little bit darker to you than this one on the bottom? I feel like it's maybe a little bit darker, but I could just be seeing what I want to see. Okay, so that's the Luxe, so I'll put that one back. And then the other thing was the Vista, which the Vista is just a Safari. This is a clear Safari. So yeah, if you really wanted to, you could do that. You could have a smoky grip on your translucent Vista. I don't know what that really buys you, but what the heck, why not? It'd be kind of fun. So there you go. You learned something new. I learned something new, and then I showed it to you. That's pretty cool. This is why I like doing this kind of stuff, because you never know what you'll discover. And now I've discovered more ways to hack and break your pen. So if you break your pen, you didn't hear any of this from me. Don't tell LAMY that I told you to do this. Even though they can watch the video themselves and see. It's fine. I think you'll be fine. But yeah, that's fun. Okay, so that is that. So yeah, that's all I got. And let's go to the next question. All right, last one for this week. I couldn't resist this one because it's a question about one of my favorite pens. So DST1000 says, "Hi Brian, would love to have your comments on what nib size that you have on your Pilot Custom Urushi and your thoughts on Asian nib size versus Western style in this case. Thanks." Okay, let's do it. So I want to show you my Pilot Custom Urushi. This is a big pen. I have large hands, so it's hard to tell maybe how big this thing truly is. But let me put it next to the Safari. There you go. That's next to a Safari. It's quite a bit bigger. Next to a Vanishing Point as well. It's a girthy pen. It's a long pen, especially when you post it. It becomes an absolute monster. Look at that thing. So it's a big pen. If you don't want something this large, the Pilot 845 Urushi may be more to your liking. It's going to be a much more calmed down version. It's about half the price as this too. So very cool pen. It's not that old in Pilot's lineup. It's only a few years old. But they developed a new nib specifically for this pen. It is their number 30 size nib. Pilot does their own nib convention. And it is a two-tone nib, which looks really sharp. Let me see if I can get you more of a close-up on here. It's a sharp looking nib. I love the style of this nib. 18 karat nib, and it's their number 30. You can see literally has a number 30 in there, right there, right beneath the Pilot. And it's not their biggest nib, but it's close. The Namiki Emperor is the biggest nib. Technically, I guess it's Namiki, but Pilot Namiki is the same thing. It's kind of like, you know, Toyota and Lexus. So this is the biggest nib that they have on a Pilot pen, a Pilot branded pen. And it's about equivalent to a number 8 size nib, if you're familiar with that in any of like the Western nib sizes. I have my particular, they only sell this in a couple of nib sizes. I think it's fine, medium, and medium, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe that's just what we offer. I really should know this better, but either way, let me see what we have it as. Oh, so exciting. Watch Brian look for things on his own website. All right, Custom Urushi. Oh, so we only have fine, medium, and medium. Even more limited than I thought. So yeah. Fine medium is an interesting one. So I think it's Platinum and Sailor that call it medium fine, if I'm not mistaken. I think Pilot's the one that calls it fine medium. Either way, it's the same thing. It's basically halfway between a fine and a medium. So this is kind of a common, maybe misunderstanding a little bit, though not really. So most people, when they get into fountain pens, they'll either hear other people or they'll observe for themselves. They'll say that like Japanese nibs are finer than Western nibs, you know, from like LAMY, Pelican, those types of brands. Excuse me, you know, Jovo, Bach, all those German-made nibs. That's not really fully the case. So it is true with the finer nibs, extra fines, fines. Once you get to the mediums and broads, though, they're about the same. So I grabbed a few different pens. I want to write with them and show you kind of what some of the differences are. I'll show you how this one writes because I just like writing with it. And then I'll show you some of the other ones. So yeah, basically because the three Japanese companies that are like the main ones, you know, Pilot, Sailor, Platinum, because they make a fine medium or a medium fine, it essentially kind of equates to about what a fine nib would be, pretty close to what a fine nib would be in Western brands. So then their fine nib is going to be a little finer. It's going to be closer to maybe an extra fine in the Western nibs. And then the Japanese extra fines are going to be even finer. So there's no hard, fast rule for any of these things. It's kind of like women's dress sizes. It's like approximate, but it depends on the brand and it depends on the cut and, you know, where the Mercury's in retrograde or not. You know, it's like dress sizes are ridiculous. But, you know, nib sizes, they can vary a lot too. So let me go ahead and write with my Pilot Custom Urushi. Yes. So it's a wet writing nib, but it's pretty fine. I mean, this is a 5mm dot grid paper. So if I'm writing within a 5mm dot, I mean, I'm not so much here. I guess I could here. 5mm dot grid. So if you like finer nibs and you want to get a custom Urushi, the fine medium would be the way to go. The medium one is going to be a bit wetter, but boy, if you're trying to show off a lot of ink and you like, you know, writing faster, you like, you know, whatever, that medium nib is going to be a little gushier, a little more luscious. But honestly, this thing writes really great. The thing I love about it, most of Pilot's nibs, their gold nibs, are going to be softer anyway. This one is the bounciest, the softest of all of them. You can maybe argue that the Emperor is too, but this one certainly more bouncy than even some of the other Pilot gold nibs like you have on the, you know, 823, 743. So if you have an 823 and you like the way that writes and you want it to be even better, even more of what you like about the 823, then you would like the custom Urushi. But it's in a whole different stratosphere basically. And part of the reason for the cost is not just the nib, it's because it's Urushi lacquer. It's a large pen. It takes a lot of time, a lot of skill to do the Urushi lacquering. So yeah, it's going to be up there. This pen I think retails for $1,600. So it's not for the faint of heart. You got to be pretty committed in the pen world to go for one of these. But if you do find anyone who has one, and I would strongly recommend you ask if you can write with it. You know, beg, plead, make them some cookies or something and see if you can write with it, because it is a great experience. Now, what I like about it is, you know, it's a little bit bouncy. You can get some line variation on it. You know, if I want to write thin lines, I can, and they get pretty thin. If I want to put a little more pressure down, it's not writing too crazy, but it writes like a wet medium nib, you know, maybe approaching a broad. So if I wanted to, you know, do a little bit of embellishment, it's pretty soft, so I don't have to press very hard. I'm not going to try to press as hard as I would with a true flex nib, because once you get to about this width here, pushing harder doesn't get you any wider line. It's just going to bend your nib. So it's not something that I would say should be used as a flex nib, you know, but it's not even advertised as a soft nib. So even like the Pilot Falcon, that's going to have a little more spread to it than this will. So I would pretty much say that like the custom Urushi nib is going to be as soft as a soft nib like you would see from Sailor or Platinum. even though they're not advertising it as soft, because they don't make soft versions of all their nibs. The Custom Urushi nib is what it is. There is no soft version of it. But I would personally, just based on my own experience, put it in the same feeling as what you would have with a Pilot or a Platinum or Sailor soft nib. So there you go. If you want to get a little variation, you can, so I could, write my name. I'm not very good with flexing. Oh, that looks so childish. I guess I have to like slant it more or hold it differently. You would think after years and years, oh, this looks so weird. Okay. Whatever, as opposed to if I just write normal. I guess that looks weird in its own way. I don't know. We all critique our own handwriting, right? So anyway, nice soft nib, very generous flow. So let me write out here so I can write some other things. So I'm going to write, Pilot Custom Urushi. This is an 18 karat fine medium. Okay, we'll do some X's, some straight lines with a little bit of pressure, straight lines with a little more pressure, and then some figure eights. Okay, so you get an idea of what that width looks like. I have a few other pens that I can use for comparison. Okay, so first thing I thought that would be good to show would be the following. Okay. I have a couple of, well, first thing I want to show you is what a fine nib looks like. I think it's a fine. Is this fine or a medium? I can't remember. This is a medium. Okay, so I have a Pilot Custom Heritage 92. So smaller nib, but still Pilot. And this is a medium. So Pilot Custom Heritage 92. Now, if I wanted to be truly more scientific about this, I would use the same ink, but I already had some of these inked up and I didn't want to change it all out because that takes me a lot of time. So you get what you get. So there could be a little bit of slight variation here just based purely on the ink. So there we go. You can definitely see that it's putting more ink down, Fine. If I really light pressure, it can still get pretty fine. If I write heavier pressure, it doesn't really get that much wider, but it definitely puts more ink down. So this is the same nib as what you're going to have on the Pilot Custom 74. This is Pilot's number 5 size nib. So that's that one. So you can see there's some difference there. And then here I have a Pilot Fine. So there's a Vanishing Point. But let's see here. So Pilot, and I went with a totally different color ink. Vanishing Point. And this is going to be an 18 karat nib as well. 18 karat fine. So the fine definitely gets finer. And you can go extra fine too. You can get even finer than this, which is pretty crazy. If I write with a little bit of pressure, it puts more ink down, doesn't really meaningfully change the width of the line. And if I write with a little pressure, it doesn't make much of a difference. It's a tiny little nib. Even though it's gold, it does not have a lot of room to move. I mean, literally when you compare this nib to the Custom Urushi, it is laughable, the size difference. Look at those. It's just crazy. So yeah, obviously it's going to feel a little different looking at the difference between those two. And then let's compare it to Western nibs, right? So I grabbed LAMY, and to keep things fair, I wanted to stick with gold nibs. So I went with LAMY. This is their 14 karat gold nib that is available. If you time travel back to 2009, you can get this Violet Studio. This was a special edition from back then, and I just wanted to flex a little bit. All right, so this is going to be LAMY Studio. And this is going to be the 14 karat. Now this one, I just punctured the ink cartridge and used it, so I'm finding like it's not starting as well as if I'd use a bottle ink, and the LAMY blue ink tends to be a little bit dry anyway, in my opinion. Fine. There we go. And then some X's. Yeah, see, I'm having just a little bit of starting there. There we go. Oh, I promise y'all, this nib normally writes better than this. I think this is just, I was in a rush trying to fill this thing. All right, well, you get the idea. If I write, see, this is why I don't like cartridges. Squeeze a little bit more in there. Okay, that's a little better. Oh, it's still like fighting me. Sometimes I'll take a paper towel and like use that to sort of coax it out. Sort of suck some of the ink out of there, get it flowing again. Gosh. Let me flood it some more. So I'm squeezing the cartridge so that I can flood it. Oh, see, there's some of the ink started to come out. Problem is when I squeeze it from the cartridge, because I'm not filling up through the thing, it's not like soaked in the ink. So if I'm pushing the ink through, a lot of it will get here, but some of it's just going to come right out of the filler hole. So it's always a little bit of a pain. Okay, there we go. I think that's a little better. Boom. Okay. Okay. Man, I might have to take a look at this nib. I promise you they normally write better than this. Okay. Nothing's perfect. So I've got a medium nib as well. Let's see if I can get better luck with this one. I also just used a LAMY cartridge on this one. Studio. This is the 14K medium. All right. Yeah, even this one feels like it's writing a little dry to me. It's these dang cartridges. You know what? You know what part of it might be? I don't know how old these cartridges are. These cartridges might be the better part of 10 years old. That actually could be part of my problem, now that I'm thinking about it. Because I literally just grabbed some cartridges that were in some of these older pens. Because sometimes I'll like have my pens that are, you know, like the LAMY ones especially, like I have a number of them. So I'm collecting them, but I'm not necessarily inking up and using that latest one. Oh my gosh, yeah, I think that's what I'm dealing with. I think I have I think I have old ink and it's not flowing through here, because this is weird. So like I've never had these pens write this bad before. I think it's the ink. Shame on me. Here I was trying to save myself just an extra step of not having to grab a converter and ink it up and clean it out. And now I look like an idiot on video because I didn't take the time. This is ridiculous. It should not write like this. I'm going to clean these pens out and try it again because I feel like I need to redeem myself now. So hang tight and I'll go do that. Okay, so here's the deal. I have an appointment that I have to go to and I do not have time to clean these out and reuse them right now. So I'm going to try leaving these here. I'm going to clean them out and I'm going to try doing it tomorrow. I may be in a different outfit, but I will try. I feel like I've got to redeem these nibs. I feel so terrible. I'm representing these so bad. And I brag about how good these LAMY 14 karat nibs are all the time. And this is flowing so terribly. I honestly think it's the ink. So I'm going to come back and try and do it again. I'm back. I time traveled. Different outfit. It is the following morning after I, had time to reflect on the error of my ways. I cleaned out my studios and I inked them up. This time I used the same ink, the same Robert Oster Blue Water Ice that I had in my Pilot Custom Urushi. And I tested it a little bit and it writes way better. So yeah, I'm gonna show you how well it writes. So again, same pens I had yesterday. This is a fine nib, LAMY Studio. Yeah, that's much more like it. So 14 karat, fine. And then what did I do? I did some X's. See, this is how it should write. I knew something was wrong. I was like, what am I doing? Flex it out a little bit. There you go. Got a little bit of softness with this 14 karat nib. There. This is what I was expecting. I'm amazed at how big of a difference that made. Now, I want to make this clear. It's not that LAMY ink is bad. I think I had some old cartridges. I had them in my desk. They literally may have been in there for 10 years. I don't know. I have a lot of LAMY blue cartridges laying around from all the various pens in my collection, and shame on me. So I'm gonna not do that again, or at least test the pen out more thoroughly before I put it on video. Okay, and then the other one that I have here, this is a medium. $14K. Not a huge difference between these two, honestly. A little bit wetter. There we go. Flex that out a bit. And then you honestly can't tell a huge difference between the fine and the medium. It'd be like that sometimes. The extra fine is really the one you want to get if you want to go much finer on these anyway. But this is not a review of LAMY nibs. This is just to show you how a Western nib, like these LAMY nibs, will compare to the Custom Urushi. So you got a fine medium here, which you can see is actually even a little finer than the fine. This apparently is just very wet writing fine. And so, yeah, obviously there's a bit of a difference. There's truth to the sub-medium Japanese nibs being finer than their Western counterparts. That's all I was trying to show you. So, warts and all, this is what you get. Everybody makes mistakes, and you get to learn something from it. So you get to learn from my mistakes. So there you go. If you're having problems with your flow, clean it out and try a different ink, and that may fix all your problems. That's the lesson for today. Anyway, I'm not sure how this will cut back into the video, but whatever. We'll just insert it in here somewhere. I'm glad I was able to fix this. Hey, future Brian here. Past, but also future Brian. Brian, the next day after shooting the first part of here, we actually have in the LAMY Safari Harry Potter pens. I wasn't originally going to include this as a spotlight. Honestly, I misread my calendar and I thought that I couldn't talk about them until next week, but we're launching them. We've already launched them at this point, so I can talk about them. So yay! I'm going to show you here. I've got the gift set, which is a little zoomed in. So I've got the gift set here, which is upside down. I also have the All-Stars. So these already launched. I'm going to compare those a little bit. But these are the Safari Harry Potters. So it's the 4 houses of Harry Potter. I will be very honest, I don't know that much about Harry Potter, so I'm not going to try and go deep on details. If you saw when I tried to talk about Lord of the Rings, it was embarrassing, and I will embarrass myself the same with Harry Potter, because I'm not a fiction guy. Anyway, so we have the whole set, which is all 4 pens, and then there are individuals of each pen as well. The individuals are $37.60, so it's a little bit more than a regular Safari. It's about the price of a normal All-Star, but it makes sense with the licensing and extra little stuff on it. And then the whole set altogether is $132. So there you go. A little bit of a price break on the whole set, and you get this cool packaging. So nice box. It's cardboard. It's nothing crazy fancy, but it's a pretty canonical set. And here you go. So it's got the 4 pens. And now you're probably looking at this being like, oh, these things are really cool, but how practical is this thing going to be to use as an actual clip? Well, I'll show you in a second. So yes, the main thing on these pens is that they have, their normal like matte black Safari, which they don't have that regularly. They had the all black, which was a special edition. And let me see. I don't think they brought that back, did they? I could be totally misremembering. Let me see. I do have a hard time sometimes keeping track of all these safaris and which one is available where and what time. All right, so we got regular black, and there's charcoal, and yeah, dark dusk, steel black, which is just slightly blue. Okay, my memory was correct. I just wanted to verify. So there was an all black. In fact, maybe I'll go grab that in just a second and show you, but there is no all perfectly black matte black safari. So if you like that look, you can get that with these. They have different color clips. They've got the writing that says the house on it. They've got little finial at the top that is a color that matches the house as well. And it's got a grip that matches similarly. And then it has this little engraving here, which is something. Oh gosh, I don't even know what this engraving is supposed to be. Y'all Harry Potter people, you know what that is. Is it like Harry's scar, I think? You know, his scar. I think it's to represent his scars. But anyway, so we've got that. They each have that. You know, they're each the custom colors here. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Yeah, so all the nibs look the same on these. They've all got that, but the grips are all, you know, kind of matchy-matchy. You know, the Hufflepuff is a little bit yellower on the little rubber part. They are soft, like these are soft, rubbery kind of things. So I'll just show you. I'll uncap all these. There you go, you can see the blue, which is nice. It's got the little trim ring too that also matches. You know, these cardboard rings are just for the initial packaging. They're not going to stay like that. So there you go. Now, when you buy a set, you get all the same nib size. There's extra fine, fine, and medium. If you get individual pens, you can get extra fine, fine, and medium as well. So if you're like, okay, well, I want to use this, but this thing seems like it could kind of get in the way. Well, the nice thing is it's not like permanently adhered onto there. It's rubbery and it kind of slides right off. So if you want to just kind of like set it aside and just have the regular pen, you know, I'll take out the ink cartridge there so I can not have the cardboard as well. That is the pen without the clip thing. So if you're not as crazy about that, totally up to you. You don't have to have it on the pen. And then it's got the LAMY name back here. So comparing it to the All-Star, which they came out with the different houses. They had a set and they had the individuals as well. So this is the Slytherin one. So All-Star, you know, it's going to be similarly, you know, all-star-ish to what other all-stars are. It's got, you know, a different print in the top of the finial, which represents the house, not just a different color finial. So that's kind of interesting. Slightly different shade of green on the clip. I don't know if that matters to you, but that is the case. And then being an all-star as a translucent grip, so it's got like a translucent dark green here on the Slytherin. And then the engraving that it has here, it's like a laser etched engraving, is on the back opposite of the LAMY logo. So kind of similar. And then this one also has the engraving on the cap as well. So these ones cost a little bit more than the Safaris. A little bit more of a premium over a regular All-Star, but still nothing crazy. It's like 10 bucks more. There you go. And then, so I'll show you the comparison between all those. You know, here's Ravenclaw. You know, so Ravenclaw's pretty similar in color overall. On this one, the All-Star clip is slightly darker, you know, not a huge deal. And then Hufflepuff does look a little different. Hufflepuff on the Safari looks a little more olive, a little less gold than the All-Star ends up looking. There you go, and there's your grip. It's like a dark yellow. But then the All-Star ones don't have the little engraving on the nib, which is kind of interesting. You only get that with this one. And then, last but not least, we have Gryffindor. There you go. So there it is, next to the All-Star. All in all, if you're a Harry Potter fan, I think these are great. They're going to be great writing pens because they're Safaris. And they're, you know, you're not getting any less of a LAMY. because of the licensing. They're going to be great performing pens, but you get all the extra little embellishments that you would with a licensed product. So pretty cool. I think they're pretty neat. You know, me personally, I'm keeping this set, but you know, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, which is okay. So probably, I would imagine these will mostly appeal to Harry Potter fans. But yeah, I just wanted to show these off to you. Not gonna like ink them up and everything because you've seen me write with Safaris 1,000 times, but pretty cool. Nice little set, nice little packaging. I think especially upcoming for the holidays. Man, if you got a Harry Potter fan in your life, whether it's an individual pen or the whole set, you know, the presentation's really great. I think this looks really, really cool. LAMY did a great job with this. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer if you've got somebody who's a fan of this in your life and they also like pens, or maybe you're trying to get them into fountain pens. Even better. So there you go. That's it. That's the Harry Potter set. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that. So my adventures, honestly, it's just been just like normal family stuff. You know, it's fall season, so we're not getting as much daylight anymore, especially at night. And I'm like, oh, I missed that. But there's not as many bugs. So that's pretty great. What have I been doing? Like, got a haircut, running errands, working on organizing my garage. Yay. Continuing driving lessons with my son, practicing music, stuff like that, cleaning the house. It's just nothing that exciting. I would have to really stretch to try to make an interesting story out of any of this. I don't have any major projects, but I do have one big win. This is sometimes, well, no, I'll say it's a little thing, but it feels like a big win. So sometimes you got to take that, right? So I feel like progressively our refrigerator has had just this like sort of a clicking, vibrating kind of a noise. I think it correlates to when the fan kicks on. And Rachel doesn't hear it, doesn't bother her at all. But to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard kind of thing. And it's just like over several years, it's just progressively gotten a little louder. And just like recently over the last couple of months, it's just been like, oh my gosh. And we have like an open concept sort of kitchen, living room sort of thing. So I'm in there and I just hear this like, you know, kind of like clicking noise. And I'm just like, I can't take this anymore. But I'm like, definitely don't want to call anybody out, you know. But I was raised, my dad always had an expression that says, before you call someone out, you always give it a look-see. So, you know, basically just see if you can identify what's going on, because it could be something simple. You know, I've had it before where it's like I've had a really weird noise from my washing machine, you know, again, like a clicking kind of a noise. Turns out there was like a piece of underwire that had gotten stuck somewhere and was just making that noise. Remove the underwire, perfectly fine. I was like, well, I just saved myself like a $200 trip charge for somebody coming out and take a look at this. I've had that happen so many times. I'm like, it's definitely worth it to at least try. If you're handy like at all, it's definitely worth it to try to do a look-see. And that was the case here. So I'm not pumped about calling a refrigerator repair person out for anything. I hope I don't have to do that anytime soon. Our refrigerator is like 10 years old. So, you know, it's got some mileage on it. But we, you know, I pulled it out. Of course, we have stuff all top of it. It's all dusty and everything. So I'm having to clean up. I'm having to do everything. I got to pull the whole thing out. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to find. I'm just going to go back there, start removing some panels or whatever, and just see if I can figure out where this noise is coming from without like electrocuting myself. So I did. I was looking at the fan and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the fan wasn't on at first. The fan kicked on. It made that noise. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then the fan's on the left side of the thing. And I was like getting my head kind of in there. And I'm like, the noise sounds like it's coming from the right side of the fridge. It doesn't even sound like it's coming from the fan. I'm like, that's weird. You know, but there's a lot going on there. I can't quite tell. So I go over and look over, and turns out it's not the fan. It's when the fan is running, but it's because the little compressor unit for the refrigerant, that thing is vibrating as it's running, which the fan is always running in correlation with that. So here I was thinking it was the fan. No, it's this correlation. So it was actually one of the mounts for this compressor unit that, you know, it mounts and it's got like rubber gaskets on there. Well, the mount that, sorry, this is really boring, but the mount has like a metal like attachment piece, and that piece had just gotten a little bit loose. It was basically like a twisted piece of metal that went up through the slot, and there's a rubber gasket underneath. So it's supposed to be able to vibrate, but do it quietly. Well, that little twisted piece of metal that went up through the slot for the mount was just a little bit loose. And so it was like vibrating itself against that little pin that was holding it there. That's what was making all that noise and driving me crazy. The simplest thing, literally the fix was I took a pair of pliers, that twisted piece of metal, and I just like bent it down a little bit so that it would hold it firm. And now it doesn't make the sound at all. And I was like, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? And it's like, I knew. I didn't want to pull out the fridge. It took me half an hour to do this whole thing and put it all back and everything. But I was like, I've been like driving myself crazy with this noise. Every time I've been in my house, like almost every day, I notice this noise. So there you go. That was my win. That was my win for this past week. I fixed my weird fridge noise, didn't cost me anything, and I have the satisfaction of knowing that I did it. And if it makes that noise again, I know exactly how to fix it. So, you know what? What is your refrigerator clicking noise win that you've had recently? I would love to know, because I feel like we could so easily just look at hard things going on in the world and complain and all that, but there are little wins that we get to enjoy. So what is the wins that you've had recently? Maybe it's something pen related, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe you could find out that like you thought your pen was bad, but it turns out you just had an old ink cartridge, and when you clean it out, it's perfectly fine. Not that I've experienced with that recently. Anyway, these are the things that I get excited about. This is where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm full on adult mode here. Nothing like having your teenager drive to let you know that you're not so young anymore. Anyway, that's about all I have for you this week. I want to wrap it up. So thank you so much for watching. Please continue to ask me questions, and I will answer them in the most interesting ways that I can. Check out gouletpens.com for all your fountain pen ink paper needs. Probably don't need to say that at this point, because you've seen me say that 329 times, but I do have a fun fact, and got me thinking. So, the Pilot Vanishing Point, it's called a Vanishing Point, but an actual vanishing point is a thing. So it's a matter of perspective. So it's basically, if you're looking at two parallel lines, sort of like a grocery store aisle, or like if you're at like Costco or something like that, and you got shelving units, if you take it far enough, it'll eventually go to the point where it seems like it converges. It's like sort of an optical illusion. But that is called the vanishing point, the point where you can no longer distinguish that it's two separate things. And it just kind of vanishes into one. So I was curious. I was like, how far away is the vanishing point? So I used a little AI magic and gave it some parameters. And so I said, like, okay, if you're in like a typical like grocery store aisle, I figured maybe like 6 feet of width. Maybe it's 8 feet. It gave me both calculations. But I calculated 6 feet, because this doesn't matter at all. We're just going for fun here. So I was curious, how far out, if you were in a grocery store aisle and you had shelving and it just went infinitely, say it wrapped around the whole earth, and you're just standing there, how far would that vanishing point appear to be for you? And it turns out, it gave me a bunch of math, and this is assuming you have 20/20 vision and all this stuff, and there's no obstructions and nobody in the way. It said that it's about 3.9 miles, or 6.3 kilograms away. Kilograms? Mercy. Kilometers. Do you say kilometers or kilometers? Because I just said kilometers, but I'm realizing I normally say kilometers. I think it depends on the context. That's really weird. Wow. I definitely have that with some words where I will say it different ways depending on how it's being used. And I don't think about it. It just happens, like right now. I never say kilometers. Maybe it's just because I said kilograms and then I said kilometers because I was already saying something. I think that's what it is. Welcome to my brain. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all this week. Can you relate? Oh, goodness me. Hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you next week. Thanks for watching, and right on.